It's great to be here today. Got lots of things to talk about. And I think I'll start out talking about childhood. I had no speech until age 4. So I can't emphasize enough the importance of early childhood intervention. I was in very good intervention by age 2.5. We worked on language, lots of emphasis on turn taking. These kids have got to learn how to wait and take turns. Really important. And then skills. And I do a lot of talk to business people. I understand some employers are here today. And the point I want to get across is we need the skills of autistic people. You wouldn't have any computers without autistic people. There's a lot of stuff that would have never gotten built without autistic people. And I want to talk about the different kinds of thinkers. And I'm an object visualizer. So everything I think about is like, look, my memories are like little phone pictures on your phone. My memories are all pictures. Now the kinds of things that my kind of mind is good at is mechanical stuff, building stuff, terrible at algebra, because I can't visualize it, and animals and photography. Those are things that object visualizers are good at. And I spent 25 years working with construction on designing things at packing plants. In fact, there's a truck loading dock and a system I did at E.A. Miller 20 years ago up in Hiram, Utah. And I worked with a lot of people that owned big shops. I'm going to estimate that about 20% of them were autistic, and they owned big metal fabrication shops. Now, the other kind of autistic mind, because autistic mind tends to be an extreme object visualizer, or maybe an extreme math pattern thinker. There'll be one or the other. And math and music, patterns, that goes together. Now, I've been hearing a lot of problems because we're not developing our math kids. And math kids get in lots of trouble when they're bored, and they need to be moved ahead in math. And we get worried about things like China ripping off an electronic chip making machine that's now 8 years old. No, we need to get a lot more worried about developing our math kids to make the next Texas Instrument chip. But you're not going to do that without developing math kids. And they're all going to be autistic, they're real good ones. We need the skills. And then you have the word autistic, often likes history, knows all the facts about their favorite sport or movies, something like that. They're a word fact learner, tons of facts. The kind of jobs that they can be really good at is what I call quiet specialized retail, where you work with one customer at a time, maybe selling new cars. And you know every car in the lot. And these are actual examples of successes. Selling specialized business insurance has been another success. Office supplies and equipment. Bank products, you know, where they help the customer get the right product. Now, a lot of famous people were probably autistic. Einstein had no speech until age 3. But what happened to him today? Thomas Edison probably was autistic. Michelangelo was probably autistic. Steve Jobs, and he would have been a visual thinker. He was not a programmer. He was the visual thinker that made the interface that every single phone has now, where it was really, really simple to use it. And the thing that's really important with all of these, you got to show kids interesting things to get them interested in interesting things. They get fixated on stuff, but they get fixated on stuff they got exposed to. Well, I recently gave a talk at a little school that was next door to the brand new Facebook data center. Now, they won't let you in there, but you can drive around that data center and you can see the gigantic substation that supplies the power, a city's worth of power, so you can stream movies and do all that kind of stuff like that. And then you can show the kid the computers inside. There's pictures online. All right, let's design a server that takes half the power. All right, that's the kind of stuff I want little math kids obsessed with. The other thing we have to fight is recluses in the room. Recluses in the room get into trouble. They go about, internet has lots of really horrible rabbit holes to go down. We don't want them going down in that. I'd rather have them obsessed with making a computer chip that uses half the power. That's something that's much more constructive. And I read all the business magazines. I know where the jobs are. They're not going to become video game designers. The industry just laid off 12,000 people within the last 6 months. For a visual thinker like me, right now I'm going to push the trades. They're not going away. And right now, you take our meat packing plants, there can't anybody to fix anything. We need people to fix things in factories. They're playing video games in the basement. I want to talk a little bit about some of the people that were mentors. I had a lot of people that helped me, starting out with my speech teacher at age 2. Then my mother taught me reading at age 8. I did not know how to read. I learned to read out loud with phonics. I had a fabulous 3rd grade teacher. Then I had Mr. Carlock, my science teacher. One of my most important mentors. He had no teaching credential. He was a NASA space scientist. That's true, that's shown in the HBO movie. And while I'm talking about the HBO movie, it shows visual thinking exactly right. Yeah. It shows some other things I did to get jobs, like going up to the editor of the magazine and getting the card and writing for the magazine. Very important mentor. And I was a bored student who didn't care about school, but he gave me interesting projects to do. I got fascinated with optical illusions, and it shows the actual Bell Labs movie that I saw in high school. You gotta show kids interesting stuff to get them interested in interesting stuff. If they're like fixated on interesting stuff, they can turn into a career. Then you want to broaden that fixation. So if it's cars, let's use them for reading, for math. Let's learn about who invented cars. There's all kinds of things you could do with cars. Another mentor was Ann out at the ranch, and when I got down, I could talk to her. Another mentor was a contractor that had seen my work starting a small business, picked me out to design projects, and he also taught me how to set up a business. Now everybody has to have help setting up a business. And he referred me to his lawyer so I could set up the business. The mentors really matter, and I had some really, really good ones. But the principle of looking at things, like famous people that were probably autistic, like Einstein, Michelangelo, and Thomas Edison, exposure. Michelangelo was running around all these churches that were making great art. That's the exposure. Then he started making stuff, and then he got apprenticed into a studio. You see, exposure, then mentoring. Same thing with Thomas Edison. Paper route, selling papers at age 11, learning how to talk to people, getting that entrepreneur spirit. And then he had a person that taught him how to use a telegraph. A very, very important mentor that showed him how to do that. Now, I'm very concerned right now of the things that we're not making in the U.S. anymore. And it goes back to our taking out shop classes and all of that. There's a tendency to look at the people in the trades as a lesser form of intelligence. It's not. Visual thinking is a different form of intelligence. You just see how to do something. So one of the things we don't make, one of the things we're worried about China getting a hold of, is a state-of-the-art chip-making machine for electronic chips. It's made in Holland. And that goes back to, in Holland and other European countries, in 9th grade, you can choose to go tech or university. They don't stick their nose up at tech. But that machine's 8 years old. It's obsolete already. Yeah, we need to be developing the next one. It takes the visual thinker who can't do math to see that we need to develop the math kids so they can make the next machine. I work in the food industry. We still know how to build a beef plant because there's one person that took a welding class in high school, started out with a little tiny shop, grew into a big shop. There used to be lots of shops around, machine shops around. Well, you can't hardly find one today. The kids are playing video games in the basement, that's why. If I want to buy a pork processing plant or chicken processing plant, I got to buy all the equipment from Holland. We simply are not making it. Structural glass walls we don't make, like the Apple Theater, for example. Those came from Italy and Germany. No, we paid the price for taking shop classes out. And we need to be putting that stuff back in. Because what I find in the food processing plant is that people who can't do the higher math design all the mechanical equipment. I worked with them. I worked with 2 shops. They're pretty well retired now. 20 patents each. Definitely undiagnosed autistics. So they make all the mechanical stuff. And then your degreed engineer makes the mathematical part, which is all the refrigeration and the things that require math. You have to have both. And the thing is, I now hear, well, they won't let special ed kids take shop because of liability. Well, in my generation, special ed kids owned the shops. And I am saying that absolutely serious. The other thing I learned how to do, and you can look at my drawing out there in the lobby, is I learned to sell my work rather than myself. So for an interview, I would go show them the drawings and pictures of jobs. I understand there's somebody here that can take old phones and make them into all kinds of stuff. That's the kind of thing that should be put in a portfolio. You know, look what I did with this old phone, and I made it do all these cool things. That stuff can be put in a portfolio, but you gotta show it to the right person. Now I wanna talk about accommodations. My mother had high expectations, but we had accommodations. And I want to give some examples. See, my mind only works in specific examples. It doesn't work with broad concepts like accommodations. So my expectations, by the time I was 5, we could do family outings, we could go to a football game, go to a show without having a big scene. And I recently heard about a 9-year-old that totally wrecked a family trip because he wouldn't put his phone in the x-ray machine. That's inexcusable. That's not a sensory issue. Now, on the other hand, I think it's very important for autistic kids to look at all the videos and understand the airport hero lets you do practice trips, and I certainly recommend doing that. But what would Mother have done about the phone thing? She said there would have been a choice. You can leave it at home, and you have a choice of what you put it in. TSA uses dog dishes, so you can put it in the dog dish or in your bag, but you go make it in the x-ray machine. And then Mom, she'd say, well, I'll put my phone in there first. You can see it doesn't wreck my phone. That's the way she would have handled it. But there would be some choices. She always made some choices. And one of the choices would have been leaving the phone at home. And then when at 15, I had a chance to go to my aunt's ranch, and that started my interest in the cattle industry. And I was afraid to go. No, not going wasn't an issue. There was a choice, 1 week or all summer. And then when I got out there, I found out that I absolutely loved it and had just a great time. So another example of